Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 46 of Not the Worsted Knitting Podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. In today's episode, I actually have a couple of finished objects, including what I am wearing. And then I also have a new work in progress. And then I've got a couple of announcements towards the end. So it's a pretty exciting episode. It's back to a normal podcast today. Yeah, why don't we go ahead and get started? We'll chat about what I am wearing, which is my finished cardigan design, which is, if you have watched previous episodes, then you will be familiar with this. This is the cardigan that I designed with So Happy Jane's confetti worsted yarn in the color Little Bit Shy. I have her little label here. I just think it's such a cute label, so I figured I would show it off. She's had confetti worsted as a yarn that was naturally undyed, and it had the speckles of color in it. And she is now going to be dyeing it in several color options. And so I got to pick out this color, which again is a Little Bit Shy, which I just love. It's like a mauvey pink. And the color is gorgeous. And then I'm gonna kind of come up close so you can see. Hopefully you can see it showing up. Obviously this is with my phone, so it doesn't get the greatest detail, but there's some really beautiful flecks of color and speckle in there, which I just think is gorgeous. I love the subtlety of it. That's actually my favorite thing about this, is that it's speckled, but it's very subtle with the speckles. And I just think it makes for a very tasteful knit. And so this yarn is a domestically raised merino. It's very soft and it also has really nice stitch definition. So I wanted to do a textured pattern, which is why I've chosen to do a 3x1 broken rib. And then I've got a 1x1 rib button band that you work at the same time. And I just think it is really nice with the stitch pattern and this yarn together. And then I'm going to come up close again so you can see my buttons, which I love so much. They're so cute. So Wendy Staples at Warm Stripes, she reached out to me and she was like, I have the perfect buttons for your cardigan. And she showed me some pictures and I was like, yes, please. She sent me these amazing buttons. She actually ended up sending me 2 colors so that I could pick the best match. Hopefully these will show up okay. I know there's probably a bit of a glare. So I ended up going with this one, which was more of a dark pink. She also sent me one that's a little bit more of like a lavender color, which I'm very excited to use for a future project. But these dark pink buttons, I just thought went perfectly. And I'm just gonna come up close again so you can see, because she handmade these, guys. She handmade these buttons and fired them in a kiln, which I just think is incredible. And I think they go so well with this cardigan. She was so right. And I thank you, Wendy, if you are watching, because these buttons are perfect. They're better than I could have even imagined. So I'm really excited to have this cardigan done. I came up with a name for this, which I've actually had the name for this for a little bit, but I've been holding off. I am calling this the Fidalgo cardigan. So I'm calling it this because if you're familiar with the Washington area and you have been watching me, you'll know that the pullover pattern that I have in testing right now, that's called the Anacortes pullover. And that is a 2x2 broken rib. And I was still very much on a broken rib kick, but I wanted to go for more of the traditional broken rib where it's, I mean, this is sort of traditional, it's 3x1. So you're getting a little bit less of the purl bumps in there. But it kind of feels like a series because these are both broken rib garments, but they're a little bit different. So Anacortes is a city on Fidalgo Island, and I felt because these were similar but different, I wanted to kind of play off of a similar name. I didn't want to call this the Anacortes cardigan because it's different, you know, it's a different stitch pattern. It's a V-neck cardigan. So I thought Fidalgo would be a really nice name. So this is the Fidalgo cardigan, and it's done. I graded this for 12 sizes. I normally do 9 sizes, but with this one, I don't know. I wanted to do 12. One thing I've noticed is that I've always been very cognizant of trying to make sure that I have sizes on the high end. But one thing that I noticed in the last couple of tests is that I had people who were knitting up the smallest size who were choosing it with more ease than what I recommended because they were smaller than my smallest size. And they had mentioned that this is something they deal with a lot, where they oftentimes just choose more ease because their sizes aren't always represented. And it wasn't something, I'd always focused on like 30 to 60 inches. But it was something that made me think like, maybe I should think about grading down a couple more sizes on the small side as well, not just focusing on the largest sizes, because, you know, obviously when you're trying to do size inclusivity, that is from smallest to largest. It's not just focusing on a single set of sizes. So on top of that, I wanted to make sure that you could kind of choose your sizes incrementally. Because this is a worsted weight pattern, obviously your stitch gauge is going to be larger, your row gauge is going to be larger, and with that means that even though the stitch repeat is 4 stitches, that 4 stitches takes up a lot more space than it would if it was fingering or DK weight. So with that in mind, I didn't want to jump, you know, necessarily 8 stitches per size. In some cases, that might have been a significant increase when you maybe want something more incremental. So I tried to kind of play off of the stitch pattern and do very incremental sizing for this. So I'm hoping that that will give people a lot more customization with how they want to do certain things. This size that I am wearing is actually a size 4, and I am wearing this with about 8 inches of positive ease. It's meant to be a little bit oversized, but it's like oversized but still fitted in that I have slightly oversized sleeves, but they're meant to be a little bit on the tapered side. So I want that comfortable, relaxed, oversized feel without it feeling huge. And that's just kind of my own aesthetic. I feel like I prefer things to have a little bit of room, but I don't want it to swallow me just because of my own shape and frame. Now, obviously you can choose a size depending on however much ease you would like, so you can customize that at your will. But that was what I was thinking about when I was coming up with this design. I'm actually hoping that I will be ready to do a test call soon. This is with my tech editor right now. So there's a chance that by the time this video airs, I will be able to do the test call. I haven't gotten it back from my tech editor yet, so I always want to wait until I at least get the first round of edits back from my editor before I pull the trigger on doing a test call, just in case there are some things that I need to do that are larger adjustments than I was expecting. But I'm also shooting this video a few days earlier than I normally do. So if for whatever reason the testing does open before I edit this video, I will put a notification or information down below. If not, then just know that the test call will be coming soon. Of course, if you are interested in testing this, the best way to keep track of that would be to sign up for my newsletter. Also, I always post a story on Instagram as well when I'm doing a test call. So I will always post a newsletter first and an Instagram story second. That's typically how I do my announcements. I like to announce them on YouTube, but I have to make sure that it's actually falling in line with the scheduling, because typically I post my videos on Friday afternoons. A lot of times it lines up, but every once in a while it doesn't. And typically once I'm ready to get this testing, I kind of want to get that going as soon as possible, just because I'm really excited to get it out in the world. So just stay tuned for that, and I will give you more information on that as I have it. Just wanted to show you some really fun B-roll of this cardigan. What I really love is this back detail, how it meets up with the sleeve and the shoulder detail. That's something I'm really proud of. Also, the button band is worked at the same time. You start with the button band, you immediately pick up stitches, and you build out from there. So you're never having to sew anything together. It's all worked immediately, and you have the button band ready to go. And that gets worked down as you do the increases. Of course, you will be picking up stitches along each shoulder here, and then you will be picking up stitches for the sleeves. But that's, I would say, the worst of it. This is pretty easy to knit. Even with me designing it as I was knitting it, this moved so much quicker than I expected. And I really love how it came out. Because it's a drop shoulder, I wanted there to be a little bit of extra ease. Also, because we're using a worsted weight yarn, I feel like having a little bit of extra ease is nice there. But for the sleeves, I still wanted them to be pretty tapered. I debated doing more of a balloon sleeve, but I didn't think that would translate as well with a worsted weight yarn, because the worsted weight, it's a heavier fabric that you're getting, and I didn't want this big chunk of fabric over by my wrist. So I decided on more of a tapered sleeve, which I think is the way to go. It's still oversized, there's still some room here, but it's not a ton. And so the oversized manner is really focused on the body. And I think that actually helps too, because then your sleeves don't look huge in comparison. And I think it kind of helps with the scale. Just show you a little bit, one more time, that fun shoulder detail. Just look at that. Look at how fun that is. I'm very proud of the shoulders. So I'm just gonna keep highlighting that. When we do the photo shoot, I'm gonna make Thomas take several photos of the shoulders. So that's some B-roll for this. Okay, so that is what I'm wearing. That's my first finished object. It's all very exciting. So next up on my finished object list is another project that you have been seeing me work on forever, I feel like. And I have finally finished my the original pair of Tally Alley socks. And this is, the yarn pairing for this is, the main color is Sandnes Garn Sisu in the color Marine. And then the contrast color is Salty Blonde Fibers 2-ply sock in the color Burn Book. If you watched a couple of videos ago, then you know I had a big saga about trying to match up the blue yarns, because I can't even tell which is which is a good sign. This one was my original. I did not have enough of the main color blue yarn to make another sock, and I was not able to get more. So I needed to find a yarn that was going to match, because I loved this sock so much. This, like I said, was my original for the design, and I love this one. So after hunting, I found Sisu in Marine, which honestly, I can't even tell the difference. I don't even know if you'll be able to see on screen. It doesn't look like it from my view. And in person, you really can't tell, which I think is just amazing that they matched this perfectly. So definitely, if you are trying to color match yarns and all you have to go off of is looking at your screen on a website, I highly recommend, if you find a yarn on a site that you like, go to Ravelry and just see if anybody has any project pages with that yarn, and try and do a comparison of a few to see what the average color is looking like the color temperature and the hue. And then I also think, for me personally, I like to take a photo of my item to compare it on screen, just because looking at it in person versus on screen, it's always going to be a little bit different. And it's always going to be slightly different. You're never going to be able to color match perfectly with how somebody else takes their photo, because it depends on the lighting, it depends on the camera they have, it depends on the time of day, you know, the angles, all of that. But sometimes having the flat photo next to several other flat photos, you can kind of see when colors look similar and when they look different. So that's the trick that I did. Your mileage may vary, but it worked for me, and so I'm so glad to have this guy done. I have not even worn these yet because I wanted to make sure they still looked pretty for you guys, but now I'm gonna wear them. So this is my second finished object done. Thrilled. So, oh, I also wanted to mention actually that, so when Wendy Staples sent me the buttons for the cardigan. Sorry, this is such a tangent, but I meant to talk about this and then I didn't. She also sent me these super adorable progress keepers. How cute is that? It's a little bird and a little egg just in time for spring. They're so, so cute and sweet, and I'm gonna be using them on my project, but I wanted to show this as well before I took them off of the pretty packaging. I'm gonna flip this around so you can see her information. She's on Instagram as Very Warm Stripes, and then she is Warm Stripes on Etsy. She's got buttons and progress keepers and all sorts of really beautiful stuff. She also has a few patterns, so definitely check her out. She makes really beautiful stuff, so keep an eye on her. All right, so those are my finished objects, and then we can go ahead and move on to what I'm working on now. I feel like I'm flying through this actually. So this is my next work in progress, and of course, I didn't even finish at the beginning of round like I thought I was going to before showing this video, but here we are. So this is going to be another Prismatic Reflection Tee. I purposely brought down my summer tee from last year to kind of show you the difference. So this is a design of mine. It is a sweater pattern, but last year I added on a tee option. So it's just a few modifications you can make if you would like to do a t-shirt instead of the sweater. It's still DK weight. This one is holding 2 strands of fingering weight together to create a marled effect, including the marled stripes. But I really wanted to do a version of this where I was just holding a single strand of DK weight yarn, because all of the samples I've done so far have been holding 2 yarns together. And I have been on a Sueño kick. You may already know this. So I have used Sueño in the last couple of summer garments that I have knit on over the last couple of months. And I just really like it as a summer yarn. It is bamboo and merino. I think I have the breakdown somewhere. It is, so this one's actually a little bit different, but I'll get into it. So I'm gonna put that close to the camera so hopefully you can see. This is actually a Sueño tweed. And so this breakdown is 69% superwash merino wool, 16% viscose from bamboo, and 15% viscose flex. And that's what the label looks like, and it's just Sueño by HiKoo. And I just really like the Sueño line for summer. I think merino is a good wool for summer because it's not one of the warmest wools. You know, it can keep you warm in the winter, but I feel like it's also kind of cooling in the summer. I'm not saying that, you know, you can wear this when it's the height of summer and crazy hot, because no, wool in the summer largely is probably not going to be super comfortable for you. But on a day where it's still decent, where it's not crazy hot out, I think if I had to wear a wool, merino would be the one I would choose, just because of the properties that it has. It's typically softer. It feels like a lighter weight. It doesn't feel heavy or scratchy on my skin. And I just think it's really good for summer. And then also having the bamboo in here, it just adds to that cooling effect, and it adds to the drape, which you get a lot with these summer yarns. And I think it makes for a really nice summer tee. They feel very light and breezy, which I really like. I appreciate that it feels so breathable. I've worked with several colors of Sueño at this point. And every time I've gone to the store, I see the tweed lines, and there are several that are up there that I really, really love. And if I'm being totally honest, the 2 that I love the most are like one is like a very pale cream, and then the other one is like a very pale gray that almost looks like a pale lavender. And it's the same color flex, so it's, you know, the pink and the purple and the yellow and the light blue flex for the tweed, just in these pale pastel colors. Those are the ones that I really wanted to use, especially for this, but I cannot wear either of those colors. On my skin tone, it actually makes me look like I'm sick. So I need to stick with the darker, more saturated tones, jewel tones, things like that. So I found this color at the store, which in the skein I thought just looked really beautiful. What's funny is in the store, I for sure thought this was blue. And then when I brought it home, wound it up, and started knitting it up, I was like, you know what? This looks kind of gray. Like this almost reminds me of like black jeans that have kind of gotten faded over the years, that like black faded denim look. And then lo and behold, I looked at the label, and this colorway is grandiose gray. So yeah, it was always gray. I don't know why I thought it was blue, but you know, it is what it is. I still love the color. I think it's really beautiful. Now I will admit that there was a little bit of back and forth for me with this, because I started knitting it up, and as I was knitting it up, I was like, huh, these speckles are intense. Like, I knew this was going to be speckled, but I guess I didn't quite realize just how speckly it was going to be and how bold the speckles were going to show up on the t-shirt. So as I started working through the chart, I started to get a little bit nervous, because you know, this prismatic reflection design, it's all about slipped cables to give you a very subtle motif. And now the subtlety is part of what I want to play up on this. That's something I've always enjoyed about the design, is that if you just look at it quickly, you just see a striped tee, or you just see a very basic raglan. But when you see it from an angle, or you pop over to a side, or you just look at it in a certain way, then you actually see this really beautiful diamond motif. That was always part of it. But I was worried that maybe it would end up being a little too subtle on this because of how insane the speckles are. So I was really back and forth. Honestly, I couldn't decide. And I was working on it at night. And I think I've also realized that I need better lamps in this house because my lighting at night is like really yellow and really dim. So I was looking at it and I was like, oh no, you really, all I see are speckles. Like you can't even see the motif. I sent a photo to my friend and I was like, what do you think? I'm not sure. She was like, ooh, I don't know. I'd probably frog it. And so I thought about it. But then I was like, I don't know, because maybe that's okay. Like I love the yarn. I think it's really pretty. And as a tee, I think it's going to be really fun. And maybe it's fun that only at certain angles you see this motif. I think it'll still show up, but it just might be very subtle. You know, it's also a risk I knew going into this with a darker yarn. You're going to see a little bit less with a darker yarn than you would with a light yarn, but this skin tone is what it is and I can't wear pastels. So that's just how it's got to be. So I just couldn't rip it back because I really wasn't sure. So I decided to do an Instagram poll and I was so surprised with the results. I was actually very much expecting this to be like a 50-50 split. And at the end of the day, I was just going to be like, okay, really, you just make up your mind and, you know, do what you want. Like, obviously I'm not doing the Instagram poll so people will tell me what to do, but sometimes it's nice to kind of get an outside perspective, take a little break from it and see what people think who haven't been kind of staring at it up close this whole time. So I put the poll up and checked a couple hours later and it had already, like, it had taken off in the direction of, like, there were a handful of people that were like, rip it out, but the majority of people said to keep going. And then by the time the poll was done, it was a very massive divide. Largely people thought I should keep going with it. So obviously I took a little bit more time to think about it. I tried it on a couple of times. I looked at it in different lighting and I decided that I want to keep going with it. I'll be honest. I think this is going to be one of those designs where I may not know how I feel about it until it's done and blocked, but I want to see it through because I am curious to see how it works. In my mind, I think I was thinking that with the Tweedy Flex, the tweed would really help to highlight the slip stitches, but there's just so much tweed going on that I don't even think. What's funny too is that there's actually not much tweed in the slip stitches, ironically enough. So the one area where I wanted the tweed to kind of show so you could see the different direction, there's not much tweed, but I think that's okay. I still think this is going to be cute when it's done. It's fun and summery because it's got all these bright rainbow speckles in it. So even though I can't wear a pastel color, I still have these bright colors in it. So we're gonna see it through. I am almost done with the chart on the body at this point. The chart is on the front and the back, and then there's also a separate chart for the sleeves, which I will pick back up once I pick the sleeves up. And it's very simple. It's just a slipped cable where you're slipping one stitch with another stitch. So it's very, very simple. It looks way more complicated than it is. That was the dilemma with this guy. But we are working through it and we are going to see how this turns out. Is there a chance that I might finish it, block it, try it on and be like, ooh, yes. But I feel like there's always that chance. Even there have been times where even I've felt good about something and then I finished it up and tried it on and been like, I just don't know if this is really it for me. And then there's other times where I've had projects where I liked it for a little bit, then I didn't like it, and then I came back to liking it again. So we're just gonna see. I really want to see what this looks like when it's done. If nothing else, it's a good experiment for me to see what this will look like in Tweedy yarn. So I'd love to know what you guys think, what your feedback is. It's funny because I'm just looking at this on screen. I can't really see the motif on here, but also on my view, it's always so much harder to tell than versus how it's going to look on the final video. But I am curious what you guys think about whether you would rip this out and repurpose this for something else, or if you would see it through. It is fun when I hold it to the side and you can kind of, like the sunlight kind of hits on those cables. I do think that's really cool, and I really do like that subtlety. So I'm really hoping this is gonna work out. So we're gonna stick with it and we're gonna see how it goes. And that does it for what I am working on. I do have a new design that I am going to be starting soon, potentially this week, maybe next week. It is for a sweater pattern that I want to come out in like November, so there's time, but it's something where I want to kind of get that going now so I can get it into testing and have enough time for a proper release. That's something else I will be probably talking about in the next few weeks. I do have one acquisition, and it's knitting adjacent and also related to my next topic, as well as being something fun and local. So my acquisition was, besides the speckled Tweedy yarn, which was an acquisition that was recent, is this Puget Sound Local Yarn Store Tour 2025 tote bag. Now, the local yarn store tour hasn't actually started yet. The tour is May 14th through 18th, so it's coming up super soon. And all of the local yarn stores in the Puget Sound area carry these tote bags. And in years past, I've thought that I would just pick up the tote bag during the tour, but they tend to sell out beforehand. And so I decided to buy this the day it came out, especially because this particular tour is a little more special to me than the previous ones. And that's because I'm going to be debuting a pattern at one of our local yarn stores here, which is awesome. So I have got a summer tee design that is going to be available at Needles and Hooks, which is a yarn store in Lake Forest Park. And I'm very excited about it. We've been working on it behind the scenes for several months now. If you remember a while back when I put out a secret test call, that was for this tee. And I have not been allowed to talk about it at all. I couldn't say what the tee was for, where it was going to be shown, or any of that, but now I can finally say that it will be at the Puget Sound Local Yarn Store Tour. And so I definitely wanted a tote bag for this year since I will be one of the pattern designers there. And I also wanted to note, so I will be chatting all about that design in my video next week. Next week is technically the weekend of the yarn store tour. So my video will come out Friday. Maybe I'll put it out a little bit earlier, but I'm not sure yet. So it'll probably come out on Friday as per usual. And that will be, I'll be going over the tee design. I'll be going over the whole thought process behind it, and then maybe even show you guys some different options on how to style it. But that's where I will unveil that pattern. But also I wanted to mention, so you've got a little bit of time to plan, if you are local to the area or are planning to go to the Puget Sound Local Yarn Store Tour, I will be at Needles and Hooks on Saturday, May 17th, and I will be wearing my summer tee design there. So if you have tested for me and you're in the area, you should definitely stop by with your own version. That would be super fun. But also just if you are in the area, if you're planning to go, please stop by and say hi. I would love to meet you. So I'm still trying to get details on the hours. I think that maybe the hours are set for every store, but I'm not entirely sure. But I will probably be there most of the day on Saturday. So I'm really excited for that, really excited to just kind of see that out in the wild, see everybody wearing my tee and meet some of you guys. It's my first local yarn store tour where I'm kind of participating more as a vendor than a customer, so that should be really fun. So yeah, that is why I bought this tote bag. Also, it's just a really nice canvas tote bag. It's got a pocket in the back. It's really pretty, and I love the design for this year. I thought it was very fitting. So that is my acquisition. That's the news for what's coming up. And that basically covers all things knitting related. The only thing I have left to talk about now is just book chat. So the last time I was talking about books I was reading, I was still reading 1, 2, 3 by Lori Frankel. I have since finished that book. I thought it was okay. I rated that like a solid 3 out of 5. I liked the moral of the story, but I felt like it almost felt like it was a YA book more than just an adult fiction book, even though it's not labeled as such. Just because, I don't know, it felt like the author was very much kind of telling you more than showing you all of the things that were going on. And then having the narrator be the 3 sisters, they kind of each retold the same story. So you were kind of getting the events happening one after the other, so much so that it was just kind of like you were so tired of the repetition of what was happening that you just kind of wanted to get to what was going to happen. And then finally you have the climax of the story, and then it's just kind of like done. So I don't know. It wasn't my favorite. It wasn't bad by any means, but I didn't love it. So I'm glad I finished it because it was a decent sized book, but yeah, not something I would super recommend, I think. Like, you know, if you're just trying to fill time and you want to read the book, go for it. But if you've got limited time and only a certain amount of books you want to read, I would skip it. So that's just my personal take anyway. And what I am reading now is actually The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. So this is a mystery novel, and it is, I don't know a whole lot about it because I'm only a few chapters in. It's like this really old, ornate apartment building in Paris where there are a limited amount of residents. It's just kind of one of those old, smaller, really fancy buildings that's kind of private behind a courtyard. Everything is very exclusive. So there is this mystery that happens. Basically, this girl is coming there to meet her brother, and then she can't find him, and it appears that he's missing. And along the way, she is meeting some very sinister characters, and you're kind of being told the story through narration of several different characters, basically everybody who lives at the apartment building, and trying to piece together what's going on, what might have happened, who's a bad guy, who's not a bad guy, and just one of those, it seems like it's kind of a whodunit sort of thing, although we don't really know what the it is just yet. But so far I'm enjoying that. I've only read one other Lucy Foley book, and that was, I think it's called like The Guest List or something like that, which I enjoyed that book a lot as well, until that was another one where the ending was a little bit weird to me, but I enjoyed the book throughout. So I'm enjoying this so far. I think it's really good storytelling, and I love a good mystery, and I love a good whodunit. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think it's gonna take me too terribly long, but we'll see. I'm gonna try and pace myself. But yeah, that is basically everything that's been going on. That's all the stuff I've been working on. Definitely stay tuned if you are interested in maybe doing the test knit for my Fidalgo cardigan. Stay tuned if you are interested in my summer tee design that is coming out next week for the local yarn store tour. Also, I wanted to mention, so in the local yarn store tour, every store you visit in that tour has a pattern that is free. And so if you go to Needles and Hooks, you will get my tee pattern for free, but you have to visit in store to get that pattern. But my pattern will also be available for sale on Ravelry. So all of the patterns that are part of this tour are also for sale on Ravelry for a set price, but I hold the rights to that pattern. So you are able to purchase it even if you are not in the area. But if you are in the area, you can get it for free if you stop by Needles and Hooks. So that is a perk about going to the local yarn store tour. And also the yarns that are recommended will be discounted in that store. So it's kind of a benefit too. You get the pattern for free, and if you want to use that yarn, you can get it for a discounted price. So you should definitely try to go to the tour if you're in the area. I've gone the last few years and they're always really fun. It's cool to run into people that you might have seen before. It's also fun to just see what each yarn store has to offer. It's a good way to kind of check out the area and maybe pop into stores that you don't normally go to because they're not really in your area. There's just so many great yarn stores that we have in the Puget Sound. I think we're very lucky. I know there are some places that don't really have any, and we happen to have such an abundance of yarn stores that are so different in style and vibe and what they carry. And so I think that's really, really cool. So definitely stop by if you can. I will chat more about that next week. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I'm happy to answer any questions about that. But yeah, it's all very exciting that I will be able to finally show that design to you. I'm also very excited to be able to debut this Fidalgo cardigan, and hopefully we will get this into testing super soon. So thank you so much if you stuck around until now. If you would like to get in touch with me, you can find me at meeshyfrazz on Instagram, Ravelry, and Blue Sky. You can email me at meeshyfrazz@gmail.com, and you can find me at my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.